Aksameak, everyone. Welcome to StudyMoon.com. This is our morning service, and I woke up this morning not in a panic, just relaxing, wondering what we were going to do for this morning, and started thinking about my notes and just doing my normal morning routine. And I happened to take a look on Facebook, and I want to share a screen here. No, hang on. Let me go back here. Let me try that again. And I seen this picture, and I said, isn't that a beautiful picture? Can you all see that? I'm just sitting there looking at that. I said, that's an awesome picture. What a beautiful picture. They're keeping the Sukkot, and it's the 8th day. And all of a sudden it hit me. It's the 8th day. It's a morning service. I got 15 minutes to get ready. Oh no. And I'm panicked. And it started with this picture. Otherwise I might have been late this morning. So anyway, yeah, that was my morning so far. So I was pretty cool. I was up late last night. I am glad to see you guys all taking part in this circle dance that Somber is sharing with you today. Yesterday, oh, Randy, who we got? We got somebody today to do opening prayer?
We have Kurt. Yes, sir.
Okay, Kurt, do you want to start us off before I get down my road here?
Yehovah, giver of life, King of the universe, great, mighty, and awesome God. We give thanks to you for all the many blessings you pour out on us, the many gifts. We thank you for giving us the understanding that we have these days. Today's the 8th day. Help our teachers to bring out further understanding for us today, so we can understand your holy days better, what they mean to us now, they mean to us in the future. We look forward to them each year. We look forward to the time when all our brothers and sisters that are gathered here today in your mikvah, that we can all dance together around the same thing, around you. Just ask that you inspire us, give strength to those who need strength, give health to those who need health. Help us to go back out into the world when it's time, renewed, refreshed. We can glorify your name in heaven and on earth. Amen.
Thank you, Kurt. So yesterday was the 7th day, the last great day. I believe it's the last great day, or some people say today is the last great day. I sort of lean towards yesterday, the 7th day of Sukkot, being the last great day of Sukkot. It's the last day of Sukkot. So that's the way I lean. Now, I mentioned to you on Shabbat that yesterday would have been the day that they do the studying of the Deuteronomy 28, all of Deuteronomy.
Okay,
So that's what I did yesterday. I studied Deuteronomy, and we did that, and it only took a few hours, a few hours with interruptions. And I was doing that, and I finished it, I started in the morning, did some in the afternoon, and I finished it at sunset, which I thought was perfect timing, which is what goes on in Jerusalem. And at sunset, you know, the wife and I were watching another sunset, and I'm rejoicing. In Jerusalem at that time, at sunset, right after sunset, the streets are quiet for a few minutes. And all of a sudden, it's almost like an alarm goes off everywhere, and everyone starts dancing. And it's what I call them the circle dance, but they're doing the hatikva. I can't say it. Around and around and around, and everybody is taking part in it. Everywhere you go, the streets are flooded with people dancing and singing and rejoicing. And it goes on until the wee hours. And I've had the blessing of being there at that time a number of times. And my celebration would have been a day or two earlier, most of those times. But I still took part in it. I still participated. I still learned what they were doing. I've attended services in synagogues there. And they're doing all these things. And yet, when you ask them, what does the eighth day represent? To them, it means the ending of the Torah reading. Simchat Torah is what they call it, the end of the Torah reading and the start of the new Torah cycle. But that's not in the Bible. That's a, mid 1400s, 1300 tradition that started. Nothing wrong with that tradition. But what is the meaning of the eighth day? Nobody knows. Nobody knows. So it's interesting that Sombra's coming up with this prayer service that she did today. And she asked me if I was going to teach on the circling. And I said, nope, I wasn't. And she said, okay, I will. And I said, great. And now she's got me talking about it here, using up all my time. We're already an hour into this. So, but to be in Israel at this time, the rabbi said, you do not know joy until you've experienced Sukkot in Jerusalem. And I would have to agree. You have not experienced life until you've experienced Sukkot in Jerusalem with a couple million people everywhere rejoicing and doing the same thing you're doing. And what we keep seeing here over and over is community. We're asking to be a part of the community. And that's the greatest blessing there's probably more, but that's what I'm thinking of right now, to be able to do that. So in Sombra's prayer this morning, she said something, and the gong went off in my head, right? Today's the eighth day. Today is the eighth day. And in her prayer, she says, it is a memorial of the Exodus of Egypt. The eighth day is a memorial of the Exodus of Egypt. And so I don't want to get too far off line here. This is just a little sidetrack. I'm going to ask why. Why is the eighth day a memorial of the Exodus of Egypt? Anybody got an answer?
Stuart just said released from bondage.
Okay, Michelle, go ahead.
Well, I guess that kind of was what I was going to say. Released from captivity, bondage of sin, Satan has been put away, and it's time to live life in Yehovah's law.
Very good. Anyone else?
Release from slavery.
Thank you, Jimmy. The eighth day is a memorial of the Exodus. And my question is, what is it a memorial of? And I'm not saying any of the answers you've already given are wrong. I'm just asking a question. Okay, so we're going to start now. I'll just leave that with you to think about, because one of the things I've objected to in the past is doing prayers that are not Torah centered or Torah related, or can't be proven from the Torah. Is this one of those prayers? No, this is not. But this is a prayer you say, but you don't ever think about. And I want you to think about it. What is this memorial of today? Okay,
Patty H in the comments says it's the birth of a nation, and Glenn says having life with Yehovah and being one with him.
I would say every answer we've gotten so far are great answers. And I'm not here to give you the answer. I'm just asking the question. Because that came up in the prayers and I went, huh, what? Okay, so we are going to share the screen and we're going to start. How's that, Randy? I can't see y'all. You good?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I'm doing something strange here this morning. I'm doing a PowerPoint presentation, but I'm reading from my notes in my hand. So I'm going to be going back and forth. So forgive me. We have shown you, now the other day we talked about heaven and hell. And I had to get that out of the way because it's such a big subject. And it can, well, as you saw, it dominated the entire day. And even at the end of the day, we had still, surprisingly, still a number of you, and I'm not picking on anyone individually because I know you speak and you represent many of the other people listening who do not speak. So many of you still have your Christian views about death and going to heaven, and or a mixture of those views with the Torah. And so I had to get that out of the way. The eighth day answers this question. The importance of the eighth day. It's the one holy day that Judah doesn't know the meaning of. The other holy day that Judah doesn't know is the Yom Teruah, the Feast of Shouting. What, we just go out and shout? We just go out and make a noise? Like, what's it about? What's it for? And the amazing thing is, to find the answer for Yom Teruah, you got to understand what they call the Christian birth of the Messiah, the one they're still looking for. To understand the eighth day, you've got to understand the entire Leviticus 23 meaning of the holy days, but you also got to understand Revelations. So there's a mixture of the two there, which, Revelations comes from John, a Jew. So we've shown you these things, and Leviticus 23:36, 7 days you shall offer a fire to Yehovah. On the eighth day shall be a holy convocation to you, and you shall offer a fire offering to Yehovah. It is a solemn assembly, and you shall do no labor of work. The eighth day is mentioned right there. What does it? So what do you do on it? So here's a definition of the eighth day: is a seventh day festival It is a day of rest called in the Torah Shemini Atzeret. The holiday is widely known today by rabbinic misnomer Simchat Torah, a celebration of the Torah. The rabbinites made up this name that refers to their annual reading of the Torah in weekly portions, which ends on Shemini Atzeret. Neither the annual reading of the Torah nor the name Simchat Torah appear in the Bible, and these are later rabbinic corruptions of God's law. Shemini Atzeret is not part of Sukkot, and the laws of Sukkot do not extend to this day. Today is not part of Sukkot. It is not a pilgrimage or dwelling in a booth day. Right? Your booths were to be dismantled yesterday. As a day of rest, all work is forbidden on Shemini Atzeret. So that is taken from Karaite Corner and Nehemiah Gordon. So like the Feast of Shouting, Shemini Atzeret is another feast day in which the Jews do not know or understand the meaning of this great day. So if we go to Genesis 5, verse 2. Genesis 5, verse 2. And he brought him forth abroad and said, look now toward heaven and tell the stars if you are able to number them. And he said unto him, so shall be your seed. So shall be your seed. Now, I don't have the slide here for that, I don't think. But what I want you to focus on here is the word tell. Tell the stars. It's from 5608, a primitive root properly to score with a mark as a tally or record. That is, by implication, to inscribe and also to enumerate intensively, to recount. That is, to celebrate, commune, account, declare, number, a penknife, reckon, scribe, spew forth, speak, talk, tell, a writer. We are to declare the stars, to connect them, to suffer them, to see what they show us. They reveal the plan of Yehovah, yet many people have fallen for the lie of Satan and put forward what we are not to consider, or put forward what we are, that they are evil to look at, and they call it astrology. And they've mixed the truth of looking at the stars with this astrology, which is evil. When Yehovah created the planets and the stars, he set them in the firmament of heaven and said in Genesis 1:4, let them be for signs and seasons. And a lot of people quote this verse and they'll repeat it over and over again at the beginning of the year, that you don't use the barley. You don't use the barley, you go by the sun, the moon, and the stars. And therefore, because you're going by the barley, you are wrong. Really. Let them be for signs. What's the word signs mean? What does the word signs mean? We use the sun to ripen the barley. The barley tells us the heat or the temperature of the sun on the earth to begin the year. We use the moon to begin each month. The crescent moon to begin each month. The word signs is the word oath or oath. A sense of appearing, a signal, literally or figuratively as a flag, a beacon, a monument, omen, prodigy, evidence, a mark, a miracle, a sign, a token. How many times have you read in the Bible where Yehovah said, set a banner, set a flag, set a sign up for the people of Israel to gather? Now we have another part of this word is the seasons. Excuse me. The word seasons, as you all know, is moed. And we don't have any problems with moed. Properly, an appointment. That is a fixed time or season, specifically a festival. Conventionally, a year, by implication, an assembly, as convened for a definite purpose. Technically, the congregation, by extension, the place of meeting, the moed. But I want you to focus on the word signs. It's a signal. I have been up every night, and last night I was up till almost 1 o'clock looking at the signs in the heavens. Read in the eastern sky, every night is Andromeda, Cetus, Pisces. Every night, they're there. The same sign during this time of year. In the west is Virgo. What am I learning? What am I learning? Excuse me, I got something in my throat, so I apologize. Last night, every night this month, and I didn't see the new moon on new moon day, but I seen it on the second day. Second day was red. And I didn't pay any attention to that. I thought that was kind of unique. And I wasn't really looking for the moon after that until just before Sukkot. I started to see the moon coming up, and it was red every night. Not a full moon. Not a full moon. It was 5 days before Sukkot, in the various phases that it goes through as it approaches full moon. It was red. We used to believe that a lunar eclipse was one of the few times we would have a full moon or a blood red moon. Therefore, we started going on this holy days of blood red moons for Passover and Sukkot. 2014, 2015, we had a dark yellow moon in 2016, Passover and Sukkot. We're in the 7th month now. And this sign in the heavens has been read every night leading up to Sukkot. On the night of Sukkot, it was silver. Mind you, I didn't see it until it was high in the sky. Every day since Sukkot began, that moon has been blood red. It was blood red again last night when it rose in the east. This is what, 5 days, 8 days after the full moon? It's still blood red. What does that mean? This is the 7th month, and the entire 7th month it's been blood red. The one time I couldn't see it because of clouds, Kurt reported that it was blood red. Last 2 nights ago, I couldn't see it because of the clouds, but it opened up just a little bit, and I could see that it was very dark yellow. And that could be because the clouds were partially covering it. I couldn't tell for sure. But last night it was red again. Is this because of the forest fires out west? It could very well be. It could very well be. But if you go and read Joel 2, the verse before it talks about the moon turning blood red, it talks about the fires of pillars of fires and columns of smoke. And then it goes on to talk about blood moons. So there's something here for us to pay attention to. Something that we need to watch. Now I want to talk to you about something else here. because a lot of people object to looking at the stars and looking at the heavens. And I want to show you something here that many of you may not realize. In Genesis 4, verse 1, and Adam knew Eve, his wife, and she conceived and bore Cain, and said, I have gotten a man from Yehovah. And people read over that and they miss it because our translators have tried to make this verse make sense now to them instead of reading what it actually says. Because Eve knew something. When Cain was born, Eve thought she had given birth to the Messiah. Eve thought she had given birth to the Messiah. So here's the who's near their mic there? I want somebody to read this. I can't see your hands. So somebody want to volunteer, just read that for me. I want you to read it. I don't want me to influence you.
Muted, Summer.
So you want me to read Genesis 4:1?
I want you to read what I have on the screen here.
Right. Okay. So it says, and Adam knew Eve, his wife, and she conceived and bore Cain, and said, I have acquired a man from Yehovah.
Okay. So if you go back up here and bore the Aleph Tav at,
Oh my word, I completely missed it.
there's nothing there. And yet down below here at the next Aleph Tav, they've inserted the word from.
Yep.
And she conceived and bore from Cain. Does that make sense?
No,
And she
No.
bore Cain. Makes sense. Because the Aleph Tav is the untranslatable word, or the word that, most Messianics say is the Aleph Tav is Yehovah. But in the bottom part, I have acquired a man, Yehovah. What does that mean? Why did Eve think that she had acquired a Messiah? Because that's what it's saying. She knew that Yehovah was coming to rescue them. This is the first child ever born. Eve knew this because Eve was reading the constellations and knew that a virgin, which Eve was going to give birth to a child, the Messiah, the branch. She knew this because she was reading the constellation of Virgo. I can't see your faces, so let me just stop and share here. Do you guys understand what I just said? Eve is looking at the constellation Virgo, thinking that a child, a Messiah, is going to come from this virgin. Eve looks around. There are no other virgins in the whole world. And suddenly she's pregnant. And she doesn't know what's going on. And she gives birth to this child. Just like the constellation said, it must be the branch. It must be the Messiah. Okay. First of all, that's a stunning revelation. Why would she think that? Because she's learned it from reading the stars. This is the point I'm trying to make. Yes, that's a great, wow, I didn't realize she thought that. That's neat in itself. But the fact that she learned this from the stars tells you Yehovah has already taught them the names of the stars in the heaven. Right? The names of the stars in heaven are there by Yehovah teaching them. She also knew that I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between your seed and her seed. He will bruise your head, and you shall bruise his heel. So Eve learned this from this constellation. When you understand that, that is absolutely amazing. It's stunning. Eve was mistaken. She had misinterpreted the meaning of this, but to Eve, there are no other virgins in the world, so I guess that's me up there. It makes perfect sense. And she gave birth to the Messiah, which she thought was Cain. She was mistaken. And I'm not doing this to present a case that Cain is Messiah. I'm not doing that at all. I'm doing this to show you that Adam and Eve, were reading the constellations. They learned the names of the stars because Yehovah had given them to them. Yehovah gave them the stars to read. Now we all know this psalm in Psalm 19. To the chief musician, the Psalm of David, the heavens declare the glory of God, and the expanse proclaims his handiwork. The day to day pours forth speech, and the night to night reveals knowledge. There is no speech, nor are there words. Their voice is not heard. Their line has gone out through all the earth, and their words to the end of the world. In them he has set a tabernacle for the sun, and he comes forth as a bridegroom from his canopy. He rejoices as a strong man to run a race, going forth from the end of the heavens, and his course is to the ends, and there is nothing hid from its heat. This is talking about the stars going up there every night, doing this circuit. They follow the same line every night. They're up there, and they tell you a story. Now, we could go on to the next 7 verses of this chapter here, which all speak to God and his involvement. And you can read that later. That's a homework assignment for you. So I want to share some other things. It's a remarkable fact that in the book of Job, which is the oldest book in the Bible, if not in the world, it talks about these constellations. And if you don't know, this is where I'm going. I'm talking about what's up in the sky every night that you can see. So Job was about 2,000 years before Yeshua. And this is Yehovah speaking to Job. Who made the bear? Yehovah did. Who made Orion? Yehovah did. Who made the Pleiades? Yehovah did. And the chambers of the south. So in the old, there's the meaning of the words, the Mazaroth, which is the constellations in the heaven, in their season. Or can you guide Arcturus, which is the original meaning of the word bear, with his sons? So that's the Big Dipper, Arcturus, and his sons, the Little Dipper. Who's saying this? Yehovah. Now you can go and look these words up if you want. There they are. They're for you to do and chase. Isaiah 40:26. Lift up your eyes on high and behold, who has created these? Who brings out their host by number? Yehovah, by number. He's numbered every star. He calls them all by names, so everyone has a name. By the greatness of his might, for he is strong in power, not one is lacking. The only thing that's lacking is our memory of what those stars' names are. Today, in the year 2021, we've lost some of the memory. But we can still make out what many of them are. Psalm 147:4. He appoints the numbers of the stars. He calls them all by their names. So this is not astrology. This is not astrology. This is astronomy. What slide am I on? Verse 17. Here is a distinct and divine declaration that the great creator both numbered as well as named the stars of the heavens. The question is, has he revealed any of these names? Have any of them been handed down to us? And the answer is yes. And the Bible itself records some of the names. Okay. Isaiah 13:10. The stars of heaven and the constellation thereof. And Amos 5:8. Seek him that maketh the heavens stars, that maketh the seven stars, which are the Pleiades of Orion. So the reason I bring this up is because I want to talk about the constellation of Cancer, and I want to talk about the decans that go with it. This is the 8th day. And to understand the 8th day, you have to go back to the beginning of time, when Yehovah named the constellations, when he named the stars in them. Judah today has lost the meaning of this day. They do the right thing. They dance in circles. They dance in 7 circles. They dance, they sing, they're very joyful, but they've lost the meaning of this day. They've lost the meaning of Yom Teruah. But you have an opportunity to understand that meaning. But we have to go back to the beginning of time to understand that. We're talking about heaven and hell last week. You've got to get rid of some of your Christian stinking thinking that's messing you up. The more you hang on to it, the more confused you'll become as you understand the truth. So, the sign of Cancer. Okay, so this is a. We just haven't got the original picture here. The original picture is not a crab. Right? It's not a crab. The names of the constellations that come down to us are not of a crab. The names of the stars in this constellation in the Dendura zodiac represent something else. In the Dendura zodiac, they represent a scarab, the beetle. And the scarab, passing its early existence as a worm of the earth, and then issuing as a winged a denizen of heaven, was held sacred by the Egyptians as an emblem of their resurrection of the body. I am not teaching you ancient pagan religions. But we've all started out from the same starting point, and we've deviated by just a little bit and gotten, as we further away we've gotten very far from the truth. They're looking at this, they called it a beetle, the scarab, because it morphed from a worm into a flying object that flew up to heaven. There's something about this that they understood. The more ancient Egyptians placed Hermanubis or Hermes, the head of the ibis or hawk, as a symbol of the sign now allotted to Cancer. So if you know your hieroglyphics in Egypt, this one god was assigned to this constellation. What does that mean? What is it? What's in that sign that's telling us something? The Dendura name of this constellation was Claria. Claria, Klaria. The constellation of Cancer, back in the beginning, in the Dendura constellation or Mazzaroth, was called the Claria. And the claria are cattle folds, herds of cattle. And in this name, we have the key to the meaning of the sign and to the subject of this chapter. Okay, so I'm reading from the Bollinger's Mystery of the Stars, or whatever he called his book, The Stars of Heaven. The Arabic name is Al-Sartan, which means who holds or binds, and may be from the Hebrew to bind together, which is Genesis 49:11. There is no ancient Hebrew word known for the crab. It was classed with many other unclean creatures and would be included in the general term vermin. The Syriac sartano means the same. The Greek name is karkinos, which means holding or encircling. Okay, we did the circle prayers this morning. We did the circles dancing last night. We're dancing where the Torah scrolls. And we are encircling. We are encircling. Do you see the connections here? As does the Latin word for encircling. The Latin word for encircling is cancer, and hence is applied to the crab in the word khan, Khan. We have the traveler's rest or inn, where ker, Ker, or Cer, is the Arabic for encircling. The ancient Akkadian name of the month is Sukolna, Sukulna, Sukolna, the sizer or possessor of seed. And it is my personal opinion that this means held in the palm of his hand. Held in the palm of his hand. And if we read Isaiah 46 or 49:16, behold, I've carved you in the palms of my hand. Your walls are forever before me. The word hand or hands here, the hollow hand or palm, so as of the paw of an animal, of the sole, or even the bowl of a dish or sling, the handle of a bolt, or the leaves of a palm tree. Power, branch, foot, hand, hollow, middle palm, paw, power, sole, spoon. Cancer, to encircle, to put you in the palms of my hand, to carve you in the palms of my hand. And cancer is also, cancer, I should say, let me call that I've lost my notes. The claria, the cattle fold, is the last constellation before the constellation of Leo, and it's there for a reason. It's there for a reason. 22. This sign contains 83 stars, one of which is the third magnitude, and 7 are of the fourth magnitude, and the remainder are of inferior magnitudes. In the center of this sign, there is a remarkable bright cluster of stars, so bright that they can be sometimes seen with the naked eye. It looks like a comet, is made up of a great multitude of stars. Modern astronomers have called it the beehive, but its ancient name has come down to us as Praesepe, Praesepe, which means a multitude, an offspring, a multitude. Think about the 144,000 book of Revelation and an innumerable multitude. Where's John getting that from? An innumerable multitude. The brightest star in the tail is called Tigmini, or holding. These names that I'm going to read here do not match the picture I have up on the screen. The star A or A1 and A2 is the lower left claw, is called Akubene, which in Hebrew and Arabic means a sheltering or hiding place. Anyone recognize the name Akubene? Another is named Mal Alaf, which is Arabic, the assembled thousands. Al Himarin, Arabic, the kids or lambs. Again, read the scriptures and see the truth jump out at you. Akubene, the secret hiding place in the palm of his hand. For in the time of trouble he shall hide me in his shelter. In the secrecy of his tabernacle he shall hide me. He shall set me up on a rock. And he has made my mouth like a sharp sword, and the shadow of his hand he has hidden me and made me a polished shaft. He has hidden me in his quiver. This Isaiah 49:2 and Psalm 91:1. He who dwells in the secret place of the Most High shall rest under the shadow of the Almighty. We can also read in Isaiah 13:10, the stars of heaven and their constellations thereof. And no, I've already read that. Sorry, I'm in the wrong page. My bad. You can also read Psalm 17:7. Set your wonderful loving kindness, O Savior, of those seeking refuge in you by your right hand, from those who rise up against me. Keep me as the pupil, the daughter of your eye. Hide me under the shadow of your wings, from the face of the wicked who strip me. Those against my soul, my foes encircle me. And Psalm 31:20, you shall hide them in the secrecy of your presence from the pride of man. You shall hide them in the shelter away from the strife of tongues. This is a pretty interesting constellation here. This is talking about an overall picture for us to look at and to consider. Yehovah is going to protect those who keep his commandments, those who obey him. And he's told us right from the very beginning to Adam and Eve. This ends with Leo, the next constellation. And it begins with Virgo. That's why Eve thought it began with her. This story was told to Adam and Eve. North and south of the nebula, which is the beehive cluster, north and south of the nebula are two stars, which Orientalists speak of by the name, evidently of some antiquity. Acellus means an ass, and one was called Acellus boreas, the northern ass, while the other Acellus australis is the southern ass. Okay? The ass was the emblem of Typhon, the king who smites or is smitten. In prophecy, is this not speaking of the king of the north, Assyria, and the king of the south, Islam? This connects it with the tribe of Issachar, who is said to have been born upon the tribal standard of the sign of two asses. This is doubtless a reference in Jacob's blessing in Genesis 49, verse 11. Issachar is a strong ass, couching down between the two sheepfolds. And he saw a resting place, that it was good, and the land, that it was pleasant. And he bowed his shoulder to bear, and became a servant under task work. Have we not heard the gathering up of the teaching of this sign? Messiah's redeemed possessions held fast. Here we come to the completion of his work. in Cancer, in Claria. We see it in the reference to his redeemed, and in the next last sign, Leo, with reference to his enemies. Cancer is the completion of his work. It is in Cancer that we are redeemed and protected. But this constellation has three other complementary constellations that help to tell further the story, an important story. The three constellations develop the truth, what is now called Ursa Minor, or the lesser flock. Ursa Major gives the sheepfold and the sheep, while Argo, the ship, shows the travelers and the pilgrims brought safely home, all conflict over. To accomplish this, we see the true Issachar bowing his shoulder to bear. He could say, "My soul is bowed down," Psalm 57:6. He became a servant and humbled himself to death. He undertook the mighty task of saving his people from their sins. The Redeemer is strong, Jeremiah 50:34. For help was laid on one that was mighty, Psalm 89:19. And his redeemed shall come to a resting that is good, and to a land that is pleasant. No earthly con on earth affords them a home. They look for a heavenly home that is in the many mansions of the Father's house, and shall find eternal rest there. So Ursa Minor, the Little Dipper, that's the one in the upper right-hand corner. And you can all go out there and see this tonight. Here we come to another grievous mistake or ignorant perversion of primitive truth, as shown in the ancient names of these two constellations. It is sufficient to point to the fact that no bear is found in any Chaldean, Egyptian, Persian, or Indian zodiacs, and that no bear was ever seen with a tail, a long tail. No one had ever seen a bear would have mentioned attention to its tail, such as no bear ever had, by placing it in this very tip, the most important, wondrous, and mysterious polar star. The central star of the heavens, around which all others revolve. What does the North Star represent? If all the other stars, all the other constellations are going around it, what does the North Star represent? The patriarchal astronomers, we may be sure, commented no such folly as this. The primitive truth that there were two or a pair of constellations is preserved, that these two, one is larger and the other smaller. But what were they? What were they? We have the clue to the answers in the name of the brightest star of the larger constellation, which is called Duba. Duba. D-U-B-H-E-H. Now, Duba means a herd of animals. Let me get you the proper picture here. There it is, Duba. And you'll see D-U-B-H-E there, which is the same as the word I'm saying, D-U-B-H-E-H. Duba means a herd of animals. In Arabic, Duba, D-U-B-A-H, means cattle. In Hebrew, Dover, D-U-H-V-E-R, is a fold, and hence in Chaldean, it means wealth. A herd of cattle meant wealth. The Hebrew Dove means rest or security, and certainly there is not much of either to be found and enjoyed with bears. The two words occur in Deuteronomy 33:25. As thy days, so shall thy strength be. The Revised Version gives in the margin, so shall the rest or security be. This accords with what we have already seen under Cancer. couching down between the sheepfolds. He saw a resting place that it was good. Here are the two sheepfolds then, the greater fold and the lesser. And here's the rest and security which the flocks will find therein. But in Hebrew, there's a word very similar in sound, though not in spelling. D-O-H-V, which means a bear. So we find in Arabic, dub, D-U-B, Persian deeb, D-E-E-B, and dob, D-O-B. We can see, therefore, how the Hebrew dover, D-O-H-V-E-R, a fold, and dove, D-O-H-V, a bear, were confused, and how the Arabic duba, cattle, might easily have been mistaken by the Greeks and understood as a bear. The constellation, which we have therefore called the lesser sheepfold, contains 24 stars. Let me go back. So here's the small dipper, little dipper, or the small bear. It has 24 stars. So you count them here. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 7 stars there. But there are 24 stars in the constellation altogether. That is really kind of a huge clue for us to pay attention to. The brightest star at the point of the tail is the most important of the whole heavens. It is named Al-Raqaba, R-U-C-C-A-B-A, which means the turned or ridden on, and is today the polar or central star, which does not revolve in a circle as does every other star, but remains apparently fixed in its position. And you see it's called Alpha here. I wonder what that star represents. But though the star does not revolve like the others, the central point of the heavens is very slowly but steadily moving. Well, we're going to talk a little bit about it, but I don't want to get too much involved because this has a whole other teaching in its own. When these constellations were formed, the dragon possessed this important point. And the star A, or Alpha, star Raqaba, in the lesser sheepfold, for it to be what is called the polar star. But how could this have been known 5,000 or 6,000 years ago? How could it have been known when it was received its name, which means the turned or ridden on, that was known to clear? So likewise, it was known is clear. So likewise was it made known to the written word that the original blessing included not merely the multiplication of the seed of faithful Abraham, but it was then added that thy seed shall possess the gates of his enemies. Genesis 22:17. This star was called by the Greeks Cynosure, C-Y-N-O-S-U-R-E, Aratus. Seems to apply this term to the whole of the 7 stars of the lesser bear. Mr. Robert Brown Jr. shows that the word once supposed to be Hellenistic is non-Hellenistic and possibly Euphratean in origin, from a word which he transliterates as Anasura and renders it as a literal means high or rising, i.e. in heavenly position. Is not the primitive truth of the revelation? Is not this the primitive truth of the revelation? Will not this lesser fold be high, yea, the highest in heaven position? So stop and think about that. What does this lesser sheepfold, what does this little dipper, what does this little bear represent? Which is going to be the highest in position. There are 24 stars here. And when you go to the book of Revelation, there are 24 elders in heaven. This constellation represents the first Hag, the first raised from the dead saints. This constellation, this little dipper, represents the first resurrection of the saints in Matthew 27, verses 50 to 53, when the saints were raised, when Yeshua was put in the grave, their tombs were raised. And then when he came out of the grave, these saints came out of the grave at that time. And in Revelation, we read about 24 elders up there. The word elders is ancestors. Let me continue reading from Bullinger here. The polar star has been removed from the dragon and is now in the lesser fold. And when the dragon shall be cast from the heavens, the heavenly seed will be safely folded here. But this is the lesser sheepfold. These are they who are through the ages have been partakers of the heavenly calling, who desired a better country, that is a heavenly, wherefore God hath prepared for them a city, the city for which Abram himself looked and suffered. This was no earthly city, but a city whose builder and maker is God. Hebrews 11, 10, 16. These have always been a smaller company, the little flock, but the kingdom shall be theirs, even the kingdom of God, for which they now look and wait. Not any longer, they're there. They are there now. Their Messiah has accomplished the redemption of the purchased possession. When did that take place? 31 AD. And in due time, the redeemed will inherit it. Well, the 24 elders are there now, unto the praise of his glory. The bright star B is called Kakab. When this one is called Delta. No, I'm sorry, it's down in the bottom corner of the pot here. Beta Kakab. Kakab, which means waiting, him who cometh. Other stars are named Al-Faradadin, Faradadain. Do I see it there? No. Which means the calves or the young, as in Deuteronomy 22, verse 6. The redeemed assembly, another, Al-Gedi, means the kid. Another is Al-Kade, the assembled, while Arcus or Arctos, from which we derive the term Arctic regions, means, according to one interpreter, a traveling company, or according to another, the stronghold of the saved. But there is not only the heavenly seed, which is compared to the stars of heavens, but there is the seed that is compared to the sands of the sea. The larger flock or company who will enjoy the earthly blessings, the North Star at the end of this little dipper and is about 5 handbreadths from the Big Dipper, is shown in the picture. So I'll show you that again. So from the star Dubhe of the Big Dipper, if you hold up 5 handbreadths, you'll see the North Star. It's along that line between Dubhe and Merrick. Just take a line. 5 handbreadths over is the North Star and the star of the Little Dipper. So I got to interrupt Mr. Bullinger at this point and show you that this little sheepfold is, you know, today is a Little Dipper. We have written about it in our book, The Prophecy of Abraham. And you have, as one of our very first articles, the explanation of the constellation about the 24 elders. So if you haven't read the Prophecy of Abraham or that article, go and look it up on my website. This is the first wave offering. This one is the first wave offering at Passover, the first Hag. This is the second Hag, the Big Dipper. When is the second Hag? Shavuot. This is the greater sheepfold. Ursa Major, the great bear, the fold, and the flock. Ursa Major. But in Mount Zion there shall be those that escape, and it shall be holy, and the house of Jacob shall possess their possessions. That is from Obadiah 17 and 19. It is large and important constellation containing 87 stars, of which one is the first magnitude. Now, I was looking to see if there would be 144 stars here, but it only says there's 87, of which one is of the first magnitude, 4 of the second, 3 of the third, 10 of the 14th, etc. It always represents a splendid appearance and is perhaps therefore the best known of all the constellations. In the book of Job 9:9 and 38:31 verse 32, it is mentioned under the name of Ash. Canst thou guide Ash and her offspring? Which is rendered in the AV Arcturus and his sons, and in the RV the bear and her train. The Arabs still call it El Nash or El Naash or Anash, the assembled together as a sheep in a fold. The ancient Jewish commentators interpreted Ash as the 7 stars of this constellation. They are called by others Septentriones, which thus became the Latin word the north. The brightest star in the back is named Dube, which is, as we've already means, a herd or animals or a flock, and gives its name to the whole constellation. The star B below it is called Merach, the flock. Arabic is purchased. The star G, where is the star G? Let me see, do I have that up here? The star G, no, okay. The star G on the left of B is called Pheda, or Phaeda, meaning visited, guarded, or numbered as a flock. For his sheep, like the stars, are both numbered and named. Psalm 147:4. The star E, called Alioth, there it is, Alioth up there in the handle, a name we have had in Auriga, so it's also in Auriga, which is another constellation, meaning a she-goat. The star Z in the middle of the tail is called Mizar, separate or small, and close to it, Al-Kor, the lamb. The star H at the end of the so-called tail is named Benet Naash, Arabic, the daughters of the assembly. It is also called Al-Qaid, the assembled. The star I in the right foot is called Talitha. The names of other stars all give the same testimony. Al-Kola, Arabic, the sheepfold, as in Psalm 95:7 and 100 verse 3. Here's 95:7. For he is our God, we are his people of the pasture and the sheep of his hand. Today, if you will hear his voice. Psalm 100 verse 3. Know that Yehovah, he is God. He has made us and not we ourselves. We are his people and the sheep of his pasture. Kabd or Assad, C-A-B apostrophe D or Assad, multitude, many assembled. Anash, the assembled. Mergrez, separated, as the flock in the fold. Kafra, protected, covered. Hebrew, redeemed and ransomed. Dube, Lakar, Arabic, the latter herd or flock. Helite, so called by Homer in the Iliad, company of travelers. Amazah, Greek, coming and going. Callisto, the sheepfold, set or appointed. There is not one discordant voice in the rich abundance of this testimony. We have nothing to do here with the Grecian myths about bears or wild boars. We see only the innumerable seed gathered by him who scattered, Jeremiah 31:10. Hear the word of Yehovah, O nations, declare it in the coastlands afar off, and say, he who scattered Israel will gather him and keep him as a shepherd keeps his flocks. Many other scriptures we might quote, which speak of the gathering of the assembling of the long scattered flock. It is written as plainly as in the book, as it is in the heavens. The prophecies of this gathering are as conspicuous in the word of God as the 7 stars in the sky. It is difficult even to make a selection from the wealth of such promises, but few are more beautiful than Ezekiel 34:12-16. As a shepherd seeketh out his flock, in the day that he is among his sheepfold that are scattered, so will I seek out my sheep, and will deliver them out of the places where they have been scattered in the cloudy and dark days. And I will bring them out from the people, and gather them from the countries, and will bring them to their own land, and feed them upon the mountains of Israel, by the rivers, and in the inhabited places of the country. I will feed them in all the good pasture, and upon the high mountains of Israel shall their fold be. There shall they lie in a good fold, and in a fat pasture shall they feed upon the mountains of Israel. I will feed my flock, and I will cause them to lie down. Such saith the Lord God, Yehovah. I will seek that which was lost, and bring again that which was driven away, and bring again that which is driven away, and will bind up that which is broken, and will strengthen that which is sick. But I will destroy the fat and the strong. I will feed them with judgment. It is of this judgment with which this book, indeed the whole Revelation, ends in the next and final chapter. But before we come to that, we have one more picture in mind in the 3rd constellation of this sign of Cancer, of Claria, which combines the first 2, the Little and Big Dipper, in one. Here in this 2nd constellation, known as the Big Dipper, or the Great Bear, or the Greater Sheepfold, is pictured the Feast of Shavuot, which we have explained in our article, Pentecost Hidden Meaning, which we've asked you to read many times over and over. After these are the plans of salvation that Yehovah has laid out before you since the creation of the stars. Yehovah has been telling you the same plan of salvation every night in the heavens, every single night since Adam and Eve. The story hasn't changed. The first wave offering during unleavened bread represents those raised from the grave who had lived prior to the death of Yeshua. Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Moses, Enoch, Elijah, 24 saints. We read of the 24 elders in heaven now in Revelation. Yehovah is preparing the administration of the kingdom. These 24 elders are the first. The next group to be raised up will take place at Shavuot, and will be all those who died in the faith from the time Yeshua came out of the grave up until the time that he returns just before the 7th millennium. These then will rule with King David here on earth for the 7th millennium. So what we are now about to read is what is the 8th day feast. It represents the 8th day feast and shows us the resurrection of the rest of mankind, everyone who has ever lived since the creation of Adam, and they will be shown the truths of the Torah, which is the laws of the kingdom, and they will be judged according to the great white throne judgment we read about in the book of Revelation. And then the wedding of Yehovah takes place, and the bride of Israel and the rest of mankind who are now grafted into Israel. So the next constellation is what is called the Good Ship Argo. And you've heard of Joshua and the Argonauts. This Greek myth about Joshua and the Argonauts, Joshua is another word or another name for Yeshua and the Argonauts. Yeshua and the Good Ship Argo. And it means the pilgrims safe at home. Argo, the ship, that's what it is. This is the celebrated ship of the Argonauts, of which Homer sung nearly 10 centuries before. Sorry, I lost my spot. 10 centuries before Christ. Sir Isaac Newton puts the expedition of the Argonauts shortly after the death of Solomon, about 930 BC, while Dr. Blair's chronology puts it at 1236 BC. And both of them are wrong because it's all of mankind. Whatever fables have gathered around these stories, there can be no doubt as to its great antiquity. Some think that the story has its origin in name, as well as in fact from the Ark of Noah and its mysterious journey. All that is clear when divested the mythic details is that the sailors in that ship, after all their dangers and toils and battles were over, came back victorious to their own shores. The golden fleece for which the Argonauts went in search tells of a treasure that had been lost. Jason, another name for Yeshua, the great captain, tells of him, and just so you know, Bollinger puts him here with a capital H, tells of him who recovered it from the serpent, which guarded it with an ever watchful eye, when none else was able to approach it. And thus, through the fables and myths of the Greeks, we can see the light primeval shine, and this light, once seen, lights up the sign and its constellations so that their teaching cannot be misunderstood. Aratus sings of Argo. So this is that song, stern, and I can't sing it, stern foremost hauled, no mark of onward speeding ship. Sternward she comes as the vessels do when sailors turn the helm, and entering the harbor, all the oars backwater, the gliding backward to the anchors come. It tells of its blessed homecoming when the ransomed of the Lord shall return and come to Zion with songs and everlasting joy upon their heads. They shall obtain the joy and the gladness and the sorrow, and the sighing shall flee away. And that was Isaiah 55:10. It tells of the glorious Jason, the Greco-Judean, the equivalent of Joshua or Yeshua, of whom it is asked, and this is Isaiah 51, verse 9-11. Art thou not with it which hath cut Rahab and wounded the dragon? Art thou not which had dried up the sea, the waters of the great deeps, that which made the depths of the sea a way of ransom to pass over? Therefore the redeemed of the Lord shall return and come with singing unto Zion. And this is Jeremiah 31:11-12. For the Lord hath redeemed Jacob and ransomed him from the hand of him that was stronger than he. Therefore they shall come and sing in the heights of Zion and shall flow together in the goodness of the Lord. Why are we singing? Why are we dancing? Why are we rejoicing on the 8th day? Jeremiah 31:11-12. I'll read it again. And ransomed him from the hand of him that was stronger than he. Therefore they shall come and sing in the height of Zion and shall flow together in the goodness of the Lord. This is the return of the great immigrant ship Argo. and his company of travelers, for this is the meaning of the word Argo. In Kircher's Egyptian planisphere, Argo is represented by two galleys, as we have two sheepfold, whose prows are surmounted by ram's heads, and the stern of one of them ends in a fish's tail. So these are hieroglyphic symbols that they're being shown here. One of the two occupies 4 segments of the sphere from Taurus to Virgo, while the other occupies from Leo to Capricorn. One half of the southern meridian is occupied with the 2 galleys and their construction and decorations. Astronomers tell us this as they carry us back. The one to the period when the bull opened the year, to which the Virgo refers, and the other to the same epoch when the summer sol. Okay, that's just getting a little technical there, but they're referring to 2 different times of the year. So, brethren, I want you to understand that the third Hag, the third time we are to go up to Jerusalem, the third time of the year, is speaking of the ship Argo. 3 Hags: Passover, the Little Dipper, Shavuot, the Big Dipper, Sukkot, the Good Ship Argo. It's not about doing the circle dance. It's not about showing up on time for your assembly. It's not about having all your P's and Q's in the right order. The entire plan of salvation is not about you saving your bacon. Okay? The entire plan of salvation is Yehovah's plan for all of mankind since the creation of Adam until the end of the 7th millennium. That's what the plan of salvation is about. The 3 Hags represent the 3 times that the crops are harvested. Yehovah doesn't care about crops. He cares about you and your soul. You don't go to heaven when you die. No one ever has. Not even the thief on the tree. He had to wait at least 3 days before he was raised up, after Yeshua did. Everyone who has ever died is asleep. But the plan of salvation shows you the preparation of Jehovah's government at different stages. The 24 elders first, the 144,000 plus an innumerable multitude in the second Hag, or the second greater sheepfold. And the third one is everyone else. All our families, all our lost children who died when they were aborted or born too early or some sickness, our mothers and our fathers, those who never kept Torah, our uncles and our aunts, our brothers and our sisters. The 8th day represents the time when everyone will be brought up and the celebration will begin at the start of the 8th millennium, when you will have all these people who have now have passed the test with Satan and will be with Yehovah. You and them. You and I. Now, when you understand this, when you fully understand this, you'll be dancing around circles forever. It is such an awesome understanding. Do not get hung up on heaven and hell and purgatory. Don't get hung up on these religious teachings. Understand Jehovah's plan for mankind, not just you, but for mankind. We happen to be vying for a spot in that second resurrection at Shavuot. This is why this is so great. This is why this is so awesome. This is why the 8th day is to be celebrated with such joy. Like the rabbi said, you've never seen joy like it's celebrated at this time. This is why Yehovah said for these last 7 days, including today, the 8th day, to be joyful. Do not come here with a sourpuss on your face. I say it looking at Randy. Don't come here with a joyful, happy. You know what? I've been tempted this week to be ticked off. And I was for a moment. And then I said, no, this is Sukkot. I'm going to be joyful. I made a literal choice to be happy. And those things that were really upsetting me, they got put on the back burner. And guess what? They're now out the door and kind of almost forgotten until just now when I bring it up. Ugh. But you are commanded to be joyful. Why? Because this is his plan. This is the entire plan. And to understand it, and to understand the 8th day, which Judah has missed, they don't know what it means. But it was told to you right at the beginning in the Garden of Eden. Eve thought she was giving birth to the Messiah. Where did she get that notion from? Same place she got the understanding that all these other things were going to happen, but she couldn't quite understand it because she was at the very beginning. You can understand it because you're not at the end, you're not in the middle, but you're at the end of the middle. Does that make sense? You're at the end of the 6th day. You can understand this. I love the 8th day. It's the most important holy day of all the holy days. Yom Kippur is an important holy day too. Yeah, you could say it's the most important holy day as well. Yes, they're all important. The 8th day couldn't have happened without Yom Kippur. Shavuot couldn't have happened without Yom Kippur. The Hag, the wave sheaf day of during Passover couldn't have happened without Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur couldn't have happened without Passover. Yeah, they're all interconnected. Today is the greatest day of all. And we're going to talk about that this afternoon. This is the greatest day. So I'm going to wrap this up. Randy, have you got someone doing closing prayer? Need someone for closing prayer? That's all I see here.
Not yet, sir, but I can.
Somber's got her hand up. We got an echo there.
Right.
They disconnect.
Okay, I think we're good now. Sorry,
You're
that
good.
was me. Okay. We're there? Okay, don't move. Okay. Yehovah, our Father, you have given us this great day, this wonderful day. Father, this culmination of all your love to show us how much you want us, how much you desired us. From the beginning of creation, everything that you've done with an open hand, with a cough, with generosity. And you've done it so that we've been under the shelter of your wings, that we've been protected. Father, we thank you and we rejoice in this day. The joy of the Lord is our strength. Father, and we sing out to you and we dance out to you and we celebrate and we worship you and we give such thanks, Father, for this wonderful day that you've given us. Father, I pray for this community that we would gather around. Father, I'm looking forward to hearing about Ella and how Ella's congregation went. Father, I just pray that this community will draw close to you, that we would draw close in intimacy and know you, know each other, and worship you, and build friendships, build relationships that we can lean on each other, because we are all important. Father, that we can reach out to people outside this community and lean on them to bring all of this together as one nation, one family under your covering, under your covenant. Father, we look at the heavens and we see the glorious story in your heavens of everything that you have designed for us from the creation. And Father, I thank you. I thank you that you've brought this knowledge and understanding to us today. And we thank you for this morning. And we look forward to coming back together this afternoon. In the name of Yeshua HaMashiach, amen.
Amen. So you may have questions about this and you want to talk about this, that's fine. I need to duck out here real quick because I got to get my notes together for this afternoon. And I was so busy watching the moon last night that I didn't get them all done. So we can come back this afternoon, hear this afternoon's teaching. That'll be at 2 o'clock Eastern time, which is 2 hours from now. It's now 12:15 my time, so it's 2:15 or 2 o'clock. We're going to start, not 2:15, 2 o'clock, an hour and 45 minutes. And I just need to get my notes together so I'm a little bit more professional than I have been. So the room's going to remain open, right, Randy? Room will remain open. You can talk, say hello. Ella is under the remnant of Hurricane Ida right now, I believe. It's coming over Kentucky right now today. Bill Babs had to evacuate his house in Louisiana, and I'm not sure if he's here today or not. So he had to flee. That's all I really know about our brethren right now. So you might keep them in your prayers. Yeah, so anyway, that's our morning service for today, the 8th day, the greatest of all the holy days when you understand the richness of its meaning. So with that, Chag Sameach, we'll see you back this afternoon. Shalom, everyone.